Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Meet Me at the Spot. I'm your host, Holly, and this week we have a very special Halloween-themed episode around sexual health scaries. And I am joined by my awesome friend, Jill, who some of you may recognize or remember, my very first podcast interview, and now we're together doing the Sexual Health Scaries episode. So, Jill, if you want to introduce yourself to everyone.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me so much as your conclusion to your season. Fabulous wrap up. My name is Jilian Quigley. I'm a sexual health educator here in Monroe County, and I'm here to have a good time today.
Yeah. So I had been asking for about a week now for folks to submit some sexual health scare tactics that they have been taught, whether in school or by parents or their peers or religious institutions. And so we're going to talk about a bunch of those that came in, talk a little bit about, maybe our own experiences with those scare tactics, so what we've heard, and also dispel a lot of them because we are both sexual health educators. And so we can talk a little bit about why that's not true, because we want you to have the best information. All right. So my favorite one we're going to start off with, having sex with too many different men makes you loose, like throwing a hot dog down a hallway.
I'm so sorry you feel like a hot dog.
Yes. This I hear all the time from people. It is wild to me. I can't believe that's still like a thing that people talk about.
There's a scientific reason behind it, right? And when you don't know the science behind a body that you are inside of, you are prone to make up stories, right? Especially if you have like massive relationship insecurity or if you have size insecurity. All of those things come up, and when you don't know why something is happening, I think it's really typical for people to just make up like it's gotta be this, right? And then when a lot of people feel that way, it's like, we all can't be lying, but you are.
And I think too, it's also used as a way to like shame people who have a vagina, right?
Okay.
In that, like, if you're going to have sex with a lot of partners, then you're going to be loose, and everyone's going to know. All your male partners are going to know that you've had lots of sex.
Yeah. I think also loose is a terminology people try to use with behavior, and then it suddenly also was associated with like physical looseness. And it's like simply because someone is saying that they're loose doesn't mean that they're loose. Right?
This is why we did video. We needed the visual.
Need all the gestures, right? I'm from Brooklyn. we talk with these. So the science behind it, right? We all know sex starts here in our brain, and when our brain has told our uterus and our cervix that like we are sexually excited, our cervix, there's like a little tiny hole, think dime size, smaller than that, right? Pin size. And when someone is sexually excited, that hole opens up a little bit. That hole opens up during someone's menstrual cycle to let blood out. And it also opens up a little bit to let sperm in. And so when that hole opens up, that part of the body also relaxes. And so if you're thinking about the vagina like a tube, think of it kind of now like a flower as that cervix kind of opens up because the body is more relaxed. But the body also scientifically is trying to do everything possible to get you pregnant. Whether or not that is what's the plan, right? And so the body is like, okay, the cervix will now turn into a vacuum to suck up that sperm, right? And it's got to loosen up to give it room because you should have loads of sperm. And so loads of sperm needs lots of room.
Yeah, I always, when I would teach and talk with youth, especially, a couple things boil down for me around, especially around science-ish, is that we talk often about how penises come in lots of different sizes, lengths, widths, right? But we don't talk a lot about how vaginas do too.
Mhm.
And so vaginas also come in a variety of lengths and widths. And so if someone with a penis is having sex with someone with a vagina and they're like, it's loose, it feels like a hot dog going down a hallway, your size compared to your partner's size just may be a little mismatched. It's the same thing when someone has sex with someone, like it's really tight. It's like almost like unbearable. It's hurting, right? The sizes are just not compatible in that moment. That doesn't mean y'all are not compatible partners. There's lots of things that you can do to help with that. And so that's really what it boils down to, is that during sexual excitement, the vagina expands, but then it goes back, right? So I think the other part that I always talk about is, why are we always talking about the vagina getting loose when you're with multiple partners, but we're never talking about the vagina getting loose if you have one partner and you're just having you have sex 100 times with one partner as opposed to 100 different partners?
Because that one partner 100% believes that that vagina is molded to their penis, right? Like, that is not how the body works. But you, when there is security within that relationship and within that person, the stories you're telling yourself are not, oh well, because they are sleeping around, right? The story is like, oh, it's just maybe a different time of the month because you've learned your partner's body, right? Also, if we are talking about looseness and we're talking about like super wetness, we also may be talking about ovulation time. Right? So for people listening, that's that time of the month where the egg leaves the ovary and is sending signals to the body like, hey, it's time to get pregnant. Because also our cervical mucus is really, really thin. So you may notice it's that time of the month where like you just have wetness in your underwear and you're just like, what is going on? Right? Like, I'm just wet for no reason. And that's what's happening. And so yes, your body may be a little on the looser side because your body's trying to get you pregnant or hopeful that that's what you want to do that month. So some of those things that you can do in the moment, if that is what you're feeling, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not saying that that is not true, that you won't feel looseness. Yeah. We're just saying it's not going to happen if that person had 30 partners. Like, you'll never be able to tell that. Only if you ask and if they tell the truth.
Also, before you go on to in the moment, I also want to say that your medical provider can't always tell if you're sexually active. A lot of people get told by like parents and relatives that a doctor will know if you've had sex, because it'll be looser down there, or even talking about like, because the hymen is broken, and I hate using that word broken, it's weird, but your doctor can't tell. And if you tell your doctor I'm not sexually active, they're not going, well, let me prove you wrong, Yeah.
And if they are, stop.
Get a different doctor.
Like, just stop in the moment. If nobody has ever told you, you have the right to fire your doctor. Okay? They work for you, not the other way around.
In the moment.
So, in the moment, if you are feeling like this is loosening up and I want to feel a little, I want you to think of the pelvis that controls that whole part of the body, right? So depending on the position you're in, your pelvis may be a little more open if you are laying on your back, right? If you want to bring the pelvis together, always crossing at the knees or at the ankles will help that, in whichever positions you choose to try.
Yeah, and I would say for the alternative, if things are feeling really tight or uncomfortable, lots and lots of lube. If it's to a point where the person with a vagina is super like in pain and discomfort, that should be a time to go talk to a medical professional. There's things like dilators where you can slowly start to kind of teach the vagina, because it's a muscle. So muscles learn through time. And so you can slowly and gradually and safely teach the vagina. Again, lots and lots of lube. But one of the biggest things with both feelings on either side is communication. Talking to your partner, saying, this doesn't feel the way I thought it should. Let's talk about some different things. again, it doesn't mean you're not super compatible. It just may mean you need to switch things up and do things a little bit differently. And we're very fortunate where we are that we do have like sexual health specific professionals who work with folks around like sexual health issues or concerns that people have and are able to help them kind of work through that in a really safe and healthy way.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's why I started with it. It was a good one. All right. Sexual health scary number 2. In health class, when they show you about STDs and other ailments from sexual conduct, this is very, very professionally written, they would show such graphic and intense images. The teachers made it seem as though all STDs were these monstrous and painful things, when in reality, there are plenty of STDs that appear symptomless. Essentially, they would use gruesome and severe cases as a blanket way of promoting abstinence. And I want to start off with a confession. When I was a health teacher, we were taught to teach STIs that way. And so we did. And looking back, I'm like, oh gosh, because I would have young people look at these pictures, and they are, right? We're showing them like the worst of the worst case scenario.
There's got to be a happy medium though.
Yeah.
Right? So I think as professionals, right, you've got to have that conversation. First things first, 50% of people who have an STD are symptomless, right? There's no symptoms. So once they have that ingrained, then let's look at what it may look like to be symptomatic. And what can stage 1 versus stage 4 look like, right? And then that's the way you explain why getting tested so often is important, right? Because this is what it could look like at stage 1 if you've got chlamydia in your throat, right? And you're like, don't judge me, right? Like, oh my God. But if you've got symptoms and you're somebody who might be like me, right? Ginger ale, God, Vicks, Vapor Rub, like we'll be okay. But then weeks go by, maybe even months go by, and you're saying like, well, it's been the winter season, right? Everybody's sick. And you continue not to get tested, then what's a stage 3 or stage 4 of that look like when it's been in your body for that long? And so I think there needs to be a happy medium because sometimes people don't go get checked until it looks terrible. And you've got to know what terrible looks like sometimes. And sometimes scare tactics, like seeing photos of what something could look like, could be like a big deterrent for some people. And for other people, they're like, if it doesn't look like that, then I don't have anything.
Yeah. Or if I don't see that on my partner, then we're good to go. Maybe we don't need to use condoms. We don't need to have a conversation about testing. They look fine. I agree. I like that happy medium. In a lot of the work that I do now, we have kind of adopted a policy of like, we don't show pictures of STIs, and we talk about the intention behind that. That it is used as a scare tactic, and only using the worst of the worst is not helpful. Most people who get an STI, especially some of the more common ones, chlamydia, gonorrhea, they just don't have any symptoms. And so people don't even know that they have them until either they go and get tested, or they have a partner who gets tested and then notifies them. And so it sometimes it lulls people into this like safe, like a security almost, but it's not.
I would say as a professional, I show different pictures of what discharge could and should look like, right? So like there's a chart and of like different variations of clear and cream, and then what colors start to look like as things change. And that's been very helpful for young people because some people have been like, yep, I know that color, right? So they're not necessarily looking for a big old thing, but they do notice the small things happening in their body. right? And it's also, I think, a good time to talk about what is it like paying attention to your body and noticing that something feels different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an important part. I always talk about discharge, like especially people with a vagina, discharge
Mhm.
is pretty normal for most folks.
Mhm.
Which is why I hate those like weird challenges that people do on the internet where they show like their clean underwear. First of all, please stop showing your underwear as you're sitting on the toilet to strangers on the internet. There are some really weird people on the internet. And just
And if you're gonna do that, go get paid.
yeah, at least go get paid for it.
Go get paid for it.
And also, that's not like a sign of like you're clean and you're good or clean. Vaginal discharge is super normal for lots of reasons.
And it should be happening.
Yeah, it's really your vagina clean it out and get stuff out of there. But if that changes, so knowing your body, knowing what your normal is super important. And people with, a vulva, vagina, it's really hard to like look down and kind of see what's going on. But literally get a mirror, sit in front of a mirror,
Something like this.
boop,
Right?
look it up.
Now put your leg up. Now, mama's old, so auntie can't teach you everything, right? But you're going to take a mirror and you're going to put it in front of you when you're on the toilet. Put your leg up on the bathtub or on the cabinet. Open up a drawer, right? Like however your bathroom is configured. I think it's super important to learn your body, right? But it can be really hard to have privacy, regardless of who you are in the home, right? Whether you are a sibling in the home, whether you are a grown up in the home, whether you live with a partner or you live with parents, it can always be hard to have privacy. But sometimes bathrooms are usually the place where I think a lot of families have boundaries. Mine don't, but we're working on it. And, that can be a place where you can start to explore your body. I think people with penises, I think it's important for y'all to know what happens to your partners or people you live with who have vaginas. So that when you see something, you're not like grossed out. Oh my God. Because your penis doesn't do that. Right? Like your penis cleans itself out by urinating. Right? So nobody says that it's gross when you go pee pee. So it's not gross when the vagina has to do other things in order to make sure it stays happy.
Yeah. I think the most important takeaways are sometimes you can't tell if you and or your partner or partners has an STI. Getting tested regularly is super important.
What's regularly?
Yeah, so I always say regularly is kind of dependent on what your sexual lifestyle kind of looks like. If you are with a partner and you are fairly confident, because you can never be 100% sure that both partners are monogamous, like nobody's stepping out. Once a year, it's always just good to get tested and make it part of your routine. We like to recommend that young people, especially young people, but all people, before you start having sex with a new partner, that you both go get tested. If you are engaging with lots of different partners and whatnot, maybe you want to go get tested more frequently. So like every 6 months or every 3 to 4 months. I remember when I was working at a birth control clinic within a doctor's office, one of the doctors asked us to come and talk to one of their patients. And he was concerned because his female patient was coming to get tested every like 3 to 4 months. And he was very concerned. So I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't understand what the concern was. Like, she's coming to get tested. This is a good thing. So, he introduced me and then he left the room so her and I could talk. And I was like, okay, what's going on? So she is with a partner who has stepped out of the relationship before, brought back gonorrhea. She tested positive. They took their medication, got it cleared. He has stepped out a couple of times. So she just goes and gets tested to keep her health in check. She was not in a position, we talked about like, is this someone you want to be with? And then, we talked about using condoms, and she felt embarrassed about like having condoms with her.
Mhm.
I was like, girl, get yourself a a pad or tampon box, put your condoms in there. Nobody gonna touch your condoms because they're not gonna touch your pads and your tampons and stuff.
Mhm.
So you can put condoms in there and have them on you. And she was like, that's genius.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there's no concern about getting tested. The thing with most STIs is that they don't show up on a test right away. They can take weeks, sometimes even months to show up on a test. So a lot like pregnancy, you can't go have sex on a Friday night and then Saturday morning be at the clinic thinking you're going to get accurate results. They're going to ask you to come back. And so there's a lot of screening questions about when was the last time you had sex, and talking about your potential risk factors, although factors that increase your likelihood. I think, getting tested is how often is dependent on
All right.
what your life looks like.
Auntie here is going to tell you, if you put in your mouth on anybody's private parts with no condom, get tested. If you are letting anybody touch your private parts below your belly button with no condom, get tested. If you are letting anybody touch your butt with no condom and their private parts, get tested.
And you can get tested lots of different places, and depending where you live, may depend on your access to getting testing. There are some online programs that offer self-testing at home. So you get like a kit mailed to you and you can get your results. So there are some options out there for folks, especially people listening to this podcast or watching this, who are living in states that are restricting sexual health.
Yeah.
We won't go in too deep there. We could just do a whole episode.
That's a whole scary life.
All right. Someone said a scare tactic. Those robotic babies.
Oh, goodness. So,
Did you ever have to do the babies?
No, I never had to do the babies. I didn't have to do the babies. I didn't have to do the eggs.
No.
You know why? Because I grew up in New York City and they figured we were just going to get pregnant.
Ah! Oh, New York City.
My high school health teacher was the Spanish teacher. He also taught theater, and he was my soccer coach and volleyball coach. He was busy. He was busy, and he just followed a curriculum given to him. That's what I learned when I went to college and did my, what do you call that? Your teach back thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was like, okay, so tell me how you teach them. And he was like, here's the book. And I was like, this is why you suck. That's why my friends got pregnant. Anyway.
I did them, but not as part of our health class. So our health teacher, really great. But we did through a book, and I'm going to mess up the name of it, but like the 7 habits of like highly effective teens or whatever it is. Yeah. So we kind of went through that and then related some health topics around that. But we had a child and development like elective course that you could take. And so I took that course, and that's where we did the babies. And I'm a heavy sleeper. I was back then. I am not anymore, I wish. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to wake up. And you got some extra credit if you took a preemie baby over the weekend. So I was like, I'm not taking this baby to all my classes. So I'll take the baby on the weekend. Nothing woke me up faster than this baby crying in the middle of the night. All hours of the night. And going out to like breakfast with my family. I'm not gonna lie, this is when my family, like back when my family was like going to church pretty regularly. I left the baby in the car when I was at church. I also left the baby in the car at the restaurant and went out periodically to check on it. You don't do that with a real baby. As a mom, I'm not gonna do that with my real baby. You looked a little concerned. I'm good.
No, I have so many thoughts, but keep going. Keep going.
But like at first it was like, oh my God, it's so cute. And like for us, we had to keep a little sheet, like when it would cry and like what we did. And like came with like a few little outfits and stuff. I will tell you, within like 3 hours or so, it was not so cute anymore. It was a lot. And I would say for me, it was like, oh, I am not in an emotional place to take care of a baby right now. Do I think it resembles what it's like when you have a baby now that I'm a mom? I think it gives you an idea as like a 16, 17, 18-year-old, right? Um, but it's very different because you don't have the hormone stuff that goes on. Um, and like the actual, like, it's a real baby, like this is a real human that the hospital has decided to just let me bring home and they think and they trust that I'm going to keep this baby alive.
Wildest
Um,
moment. Wildest moment.
yeah, I left and I'm like, oh, okay. And I watch like a lot of TV shows and movies and stuff.
Mhm.
And so, I'm like, they're going to wheel me out in the wheelchair. They're going to check to make sure I have a car seat. They literally were like, okay, you guys are good to go. Cut the tags off of the baby. They're like, have a good day. And they didn't even see if I had a car seat, nothing.
Okay,
Nothing.
that's not what happened with me. So they wheeled me out because your girl wasn't walking anywhere after a C-section. And he brought the car seat up. So I think it was just like to put her in. And he carried her, or I carried her in the car seat on my lap. I think it was so bumpy. It was the worst pain ever. And then my brother was outside. So, but they had someone escort me and stuff.
You know why they didn't take me that way? Because my daughter had to stay in the special care nursery a couple days after I was discharged as a patient. So I was no longer a patient there.
Gotcha.
So when you're not a patient there, you get nothing. They don't give you any medications. Obviously, they don't give you none of your meals. You got to go figure out food. And this was during COVID. So the options for all of this stuff were extremely limited. And yeah, now that I think of it, we did have the cart. We had like the seat.
Yeah.
And we didn't know what we were doing. We had no idea. And so we literally had to grab one of the doctors to like show us how to tighten it and make sure we were doing it right. We were freaking out. I couldn't even put a onesie on the baby to go home. I was like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to put a onesie on my baby. I'm going to break her. And I made Andy do it, my spouse, who never held a baby until we had one. I'm like, put clothes on the baby. Okay, bye. I have to go to the bathroom.
Okay, so robotic babies. They worked a little bit for Holly.
Yeah.
Right? So I would say what worked for me, we didn't have robotic babies, but my high school was really close to a YMCA. And they had us do a volunteer at the daycare. And it wasn't like, oh, you volunteered just like one time. No, you went back to those kids. And they were great. And it taught a lot of people that they either wanted to or didn't want to. But not everybody in my high school also was able to be a part of that program.
Yeah.
And now that I'm older, some of the people who had babies early, I don't think were a part of that program.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially working with young people, I'm sure you've had a similar experience because I know you've worked with and continue to work with like teen moms and teen parents. There's a lot of shame around teens who get pregnant. And so I think like this whole idea of like, if you have a baby at a young age, your life is over and just like you're done.
Yeah.
Will your life change? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Will things that you want to do or accomplish maybe become more difficult or challenging? Absolutely. For a lot of people. Not everybody, but a lot of people. So, those are kind of things that I like to think about when talking about it because I don't want someone to feel ashamed for a decision they made or potentially a decision they really didn't make for themselves. And especially now living in a time where, again, young people are not able to access services. And we are going to see a lot of ripple effects. I mean, we already are seeing serious ripple effects of that. The robotic babies and volunteering your time at the daycare center for classes and stuff, I think gives a small glimpse. But it's we're both moms, and I'm sure you can agree with this. It's every day, all day. And we both had babies during COVID. And this village that people talk about, for me, really was non-existent because I didn't feel comfortable having people come over. Even though everyone in my family was vaccinated at that time and stuff, I was so scared to have people come over. I was so afraid of people holding my baby. I was like, I don't want anyone to hold her and stuff like that. And I had really bad postpartum anxiety. So there was like no village. And a lot of people who were like, "You're pregnant, I'm so excited." I don't ever hear from them.
Yeah. And so I think one of the biggest things that adults have tried to do is minimize teen pregnancy because we know how hard parenting is. But we also realize we have changed the world a lot, right? When we had our grandparents' generation, it was very normal to be a teen parent, right? So that wasn't that long ago. And I think about, right, like voting things were changing in like 1960. And I thought, like, what was my grandma doing in 1960, right? My mom's mom, she was a mom of 3 babies under 4 and pregnant with her 4th.
In the 60s, my grandma, who's now passed on, so my dad was born in 1962, and he is the youngest of 8. So she was having her 8th child. Yeah. Right. Could not even imagine.
And so our grandmas probably started off young. I mean, my dad's mom was about 15, 16, and her first baby, she had twins.
Wow.
Right? And then she had my dad not too long after that, because he's like a year and a half or 2 years younger than the twins. And she had 6 babies altogether, right? And she started out when she was 16. So the shame around parenting young really comes from a place of fear, of like, we know that it can be hard. And because we've also changed a lot of laws and legislation for you to not be considered an adult until a different age, we just want you to try and wait. I think also we learned a lot about development, right? We've learned a lot about development of your body, development of your brains. And so if you can wait until your body is fully developed, you may have an easier understanding of how the world works and how your body works. But as somebody who's been a social worker with teen parents, I would say I have met so many incredible teen parents. Age does not determine whether or not you're going to be a good parent, because I've met some really crappy 35-year-old parents. I became a mom at 35, right? So we all know some parents who have been parents for a really long time, and they're still crappy parents. Right? So age does not determine whether or not you would be a good parent. Age just determines your opportunities in life, right? And so you're going to have to work hard regardless of the path that you choose. And so you just have to determine, do you want a child on your hip that whole time you are working hard? And your time will come when you say yay or nay. And so we hope that there are some other ways that people and providers and professionals can figure out to teach kids about having children without scaring the life out of them. Because I do. Okay, so also I've shared sometimes, I've taught parenting classes. I taught parenting classes for our county for like 4 or 5 years. And people have always said children don't come with instructions. As a parenting educator, children could come with instructions. If children didn't come with instructions, half of our memes wouldn't be about ideas for the children that we have. Hey girl, put tape on the wall and have her drive cars up the wall with tape. Like, we wouldn't be sending each other ideas all the time. There wouldn't be parenting books and instructions. Children could come with instructions. Whether or not we choose to teach that to young people or not could determine on how they choose to be parents.
Yeah. I think that's it. All right.
All right, let's see what we got next.
Da-da-da. Okay. My dead family members will see me from heaven going ham on some chick, and that will make them sad. I'm
make
sorry.
them sad. Why would it make them
Okay.
sad?
Have you ever been like, oh my god, I wonder if like my dead relatives are watching me, like, on Twitter now?
I grew up Catholic.
Yeah, so same. So yes. So yes.
My dead relatives are always watching.
Along with Jesus.
Along with Jesus. Listen, my grandmother and my mother used to tell me, Jesus sits at the right hand of God, Jilian, and I sit at the left. Okay? I was terrified. Yeah, there's so much shame in that, right? So whether you're having sex with other people, my favorite is God will see you if you're having pleasure with yourself, right?
Sorry.
Okay, so this
I laugh because this is so funny because I literally still feel this way when someone passes away. I'm like, I can't have sex for a while because all I can think about is like they're watching me and it's so creepy. It's uncomfortable.
okay, so this all right. Holly's freaking out, her glasses are jumping off her face.
For the relatives, knocking them off.
See, I told you don't do that. No, I really think as a super spiritual person, right now I'm gonna get a little much, but as a super spiritual person, there are times where like your people could be around, and then there are times where they know that they can exit the room. All right. So, but are there people there who will spirits there to guide you and like protect you during those intimate moments where you're being super vulnerable? Possibly, right? Because sex is also it's a spiritual thing. It's an energetic thing, right? Some people have brought up, what is a soul tie, right? And so, yes, sex is a full energy, and could other energies be around? Yeah, but are they sitting there like, is grandma sitting at the edge of the bed like, "Hey, Jillian, why are you doing that?" No, right? And I will never. You can't pay me the amount of money to think, and I promise you, next time I'm probably gonna laugh my ass off.
I don't think she's sitting at the edge of the bed, but like literally watching down from above. This is how I envision that. And then I'm like,
they're all just floating up there watching us doing it. They got other things to do.
No, I'm like literally glad somebody put this because I'm like, oh, we can talk about this out loud now. No, and in my rational brain,
Yeah,
I know that, right? In the moment brain, I'm like, oh my god, they're watching me. This is so creepy and uncomfortable, and I'm like, I just get kind of freaked out.
Okay, so
I don't always feel that way, just so you know. Just sometimes.
Put some pretty things on your ceilings.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Distract your ADHD brain.
Mm-hmm.
Right. This is why some people like mirrors. But if mirrors aren't your thing, so it's not about, for me, it's not about looking at myself. It's about like when I'm sleeping in the middle of the night, like Final Destination, and this mirror is gonna come down and break me in half. Right. So like I don't do mirrors, but some people really like thin veiled curtains over their bed, like if they have a post, or some really pretty flowers up there, something else to look and make your bedroom a little more sensual.
I like that.
Yeah.
And they can't see me through the flowers.
They can't see. But they can see from the ceiling.
First of all,
the roof of the house.
All right. These two are around condoms. So condoms will cut off your circulation over time.
Ooh.
And condoms can break and then just get stuck in the vagina forever and ever.
Okay.
And there's just a sea of broken condoms and tampons and birth control.
All the things we shove up there.
Yeah.
Yes, condoms could hurt your penis and hurt circulation. Right? So that's why condoms come in different sizes. If you are having loads of trouble finding a condom that fits you, try an internal condom with your partner. right? So have the person with the vagina or the anus put the condom inside of them. That way the person with the penis doesn't have to have a condom on. That's one.
And it's a very wide,
It's a wide set condom, no,
wide,
right? It is very right, and usually for those who are like, I don't know if I've ever seen those. They usually come like in a purple packaging, purplish pink, lavender, and you can get them at free clinics. Any clinic, you can just go in and ask for internal condoms. Some people call them female condoms, but we like to call them internal, so that way you also know you can use them in the rear ends.
You can get them at drugstores, like where like the external condoms are.
Yeah,
they have them there. There's only one brand in the U.S. It's called FC2, female condom. And so trying to make that language inclusive is really important. But also like a lot of condoms, when they come in like different sizing and stuff like that, a lot of it is not necessarily always the length, because condoms are super stretchy. Because like I can put a condom all the way past my elbow, and if someone has a dick bigger than this, like that's a whole different story. Good for you. Also make some money off of that.
Yeah, but we're not.
But yeah,
we're not doing this.
No.
Right? And your private parts, we know, are sensitive.
Yeah, they're super sensitive.
Right?
For sure.
And we know that they get ticklish and that they're sensitive. So, right, we want to be mindful. So try other sizes.
Flared. A lot of them have like a little bit of a flared out base as well. That can help. Putting some lube inside the condom before putting it on.
Yep.
Can help reduce some of that tightness and friction as well.
Yeah, because, a lot of people who don't like to use condoms, I try to tell them you're looking for 2 W's, right? We're looking for wetness and we're looking for warmth. So when you're putting on a condom, sometimes you're taking away that wetness depending on how long that condom's been out on the market. So adding some lube, a little bit, right? Not too much. You don't want it to slip off, but it can be really helpful to make sure that like it rolls down properly and that it's comfortable for you. As well as there are some brands that do offer an opportunity for you to measure your penis, right? So the One Condom brand,
Trojan has the ruler online.
One Condom has it too.
One condom too. They're so good.
So you can go on their website and print out their ruler, and measure your penis, and then go ahead and order both the width and the length that you need. You can order them in ultra thin, which is always recommended, right? So that bare skin sort of feeling. They have them ribbed and studded. That's fun, right?
Colors.
Right. They might even have them like neon, go play hide and seek.
Glow in the dark. I feel like it would weird me. I feel like glow in the dark for me personally. Listen, if that's your jam and that's getting you to use condoms with your partners, go for it. For me, it just weirds me out with the glow.
Listen, Halloween is around the corner. All right, you want to scare somebody? Go stand in the closet, a little naked with your little glow in the dark.
Of your house or your partner's house. Don't just go to some random person's house and be in the closet. I just want to clarify, because you never know who listens to the podcast. I don't want nobody saying coming back on us. That's a liability thing.
You told me I could go. No, baby. Jesus Christ.
No, but I think that's a really good thing too. And I think also with the lube, a couple things. Some people say they don't like to use condoms because they don't like the way it feels. It doesn't feel like natural. A little bit of lube can offer some of that increased sensation during sex. When using lube with condoms, it's really important to not use oil-based lubricants. Everybody gets in a pickle sometimes where you're trying to find something to use in the house. There's that Vaseline. I keep a thing of Vaseline by my bed, or lotion. Those things have oil. So if you're looking at like the ingredients and it has mineral oil, it's usually the most popular one. Don't use that with condoms. It'll cause the condoms to break. Water-based or silicone-based are the way to go. I think just in general. Silicone-based if you're wanting something to last a little bit longer. Water-based, you want to reapply a little more often for most people.
Silicone-based is really great for my in shower sex folks. right? Especially for my grown-ups here. Grown-ups, here we go. 2 things. Keep lube on every floor of the house. Okay? Lube will help much better with quickies and when we have short amount of time for fun. And silicone based for those, keep it in the bathroom, right? In the medicine cabinet, in little packages or a little bottle. That way, when you're having in-shower play, you can finish in the shower and not feel like you have to go to another room because you have dried out,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so silicone can help. And as you get older and your body is changing after children, feel free to enjoy some silicone as it helps folks to last longer. Lube can help with all of the steps.
So the second part around condoms getting lost, like breaking and getting lost. Things don't. The vagina is not like this endless sea.
Okay, condoms do break.
Yes, that's
and they can get sucked off 100%,
Mhm.
right? Let's start there. Those things can happen. Now, the endless abyss of body, no, right? Like that won't happen. People with a vagina have a cervix, a cat,
up at the top.
right? And so it may stay in the vaginal canal. Do you have any recommendations what someone can do with that?
Yeah. So if we're talking about condoms, we're talking about small sex toys, we're talking about tampons, we're talking about whatever it is. Trying to get into a position like laying down or sitting where you're able to kind of get a better reach in, or have your partner help you out. If you're still not finding what you need, as embarrassing as it may sound, you may need to go to like a clinic or a doctor's office. And I will tell you, they have seen it all. They have heard it all. That sex sent me to the ER.
Mhm.
That show used to be my favorite. They have seen it all. So there's nothing you're going to come in with where they're like, what? Like lots of different stuff. People use lots
Okay.
of things in their house to
So,
do things.
What has happened, right, is that the inside of that body part is probably dry.
Mhm.
And so whatever is in there, especially a condom, there's not enough lubrication for that to come out. So there's
Mhm.
some ways you can even get lubricant into the vagina. So one of those ways might be doing like yeast infection medication, right? That can go up. It can lubricate the inside. It can make sure that no yucky happens, right? With that condom possibly being in there for a long time. Also, you can, when your partner uses their fingers,
Mhm.
put lubrication on fingers. Try and use a glove, right? So that way it's an easier grip. It can help lubricate things on the inside, and their hands are not like absorbing the lubrication.
Mhm.
And so you might just need a little more lubrication in there, especially if you're someone like me who's like, I'm not going to the doctor for this.
Yeah, and that's fair. I think
Yes.
for a lot of people, that is kind of like this last resort. But I
Mhm.
will also say this was specifically talking about in the vagina, in the anus. That's a whole different story.
Go to the doctor
You need to go to the doctor immediately.
immediately.
If stuff gets stuck up in your butt. That's why we always recommend if you're going to put things in your butt, it needs to have a flared base so that it can't go up and through. So you definitely need to go to the doctor to get that removed.
Don't use food. Don't use hairbrushes. Don't use bottles. Don't use anything that is a tube. Don't use. What else do people? Don't use regular dildos either.
You need flared base.
Right? You need a flared base because sometimes, based off of the type of sex you might be having, especially if it's any sort of aggressive play, we don't need that dildo to break off inside of you, right? Because it's a toy at the end of the day. So be very thoughtful, especially if you are by yourself and enjoying that play, because if nobody's there to help you, it can be quite uncomfortable to have to make your way to the ER. But please do.
Yes.
Right? Like if something gets stuck in your butt, go. Because your intestines can then be compromised.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You could. it could be very, very serious pretty quickly. So
Yeah. One of my besties is a lab technician over at a hospital, and that's one of her specialties.
I love that.
The stuff that comes in out of people's bodies.
I love that. That's a fun job. All right. We have time for one last one. We can speak to this very well as growing up Catholic. You'd be whispered about by the church membership and labeled with a scarlet letter.
Oh, gosh. Okay. If you are in 2024 and you still actually attend church, God bless you, right? Because the majority of churches have really let a lot of us down in comparison to maybe when like our grandparents went to church.
Mhm.
And church, regardless of what your background was, church was something everybody in this country sort of did. So if you do still go to church, right? Like people at church are going to talk about you no matter what you do. The majority of the people at church who will shame you for your body are usually the people who are committing the sexual crimes. If you are being shamed about your body, about sex, about love, about your behavior from the person at the pulpit, right? Like at the front, then really take a big look at the church that you are at. Following someone who is to bring the word of God to you, and the only way that they know how to bring the word of God to you is to shame you. That's not somebody bringing God, baby. That's you're in a different house. I also think that if you have that shame from maybe when you were younger, right? Maybe you don't attend church anymore, but that stuff still sits with you. So maybe you don't share your relationships with your family. Maybe you're nervous about what your family is going to say about you. You have to get to a place of security of what you are comfortable with what you're doing. If you are not comfortable with what you are doing, but you are still carrying out these behaviors, right, that's a big red flag on yourself. And you may not have friends to talk to, or you may feel shamed by those people, but there are professionals who can talk all of the time about that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I would say anytime shame is being brought into discussions around sex, take a pause and let's think about this. And this is why I really wanted to do this whole episode, is because that is the reality for a lot of people. The messaging they get around sex is shame based, not just from religious institutions, but everywhere. Sex is not shameful. Sex is something that most people are going to do in their lifetime. Sex should be pleasurable. It should be fun. It should be a way to bond with your partner in a different way, or partners in a different way. But shame should not be a part of it. And I think any institution that is using shame around sex is not being fair to you, and is potentially setting people up for not getting tested, not using birth control, not asking their partners about, their STI status and previous partners and things like that. And that is a form of control. And I think you put it nicely. The people who are shaming you are probably the people who are in a position that they need or want to control you in some way. And that none of that is healthy, obviously.
Also projection, right? Remember that the majority of people's insecurities and the things that people are working with usually come out via projection, right? So one finger out to you, three fingers back to them, right? Like, so if you are living with shame regarding your body, regarding, things that you've been taught about your body, this is a moment where, apologize to your body and to yourself for having to hear those things, right? Like, because unfortunately, the majority of the shame that is going to come your way are going to come from the people that are closest to you. So the people at your church, the people at your school, the people in your community, sometimes the people in your family, right? That's usually where the shame comes from our closest network of community. And so it can be hard to build new community, right? It can be hard to find new people and see like, all right, how do other people feel? But one of the best things about stepping out of your comfort zone and looking for a new community is really liberation from all of that, right? Liberation from feeling yucky, from liberation from just being who you are and being told you should be uncomfortable in your skin because I said so. That's what shame is.
That's a really good podcast on this sexual health scaries and the special Halloween episode.
Listen, sex can be scary, right?
Sure.
But most of the time it is, right? Fear should warn you, right? It should, listen to your body, listen to your heart, listen to your mind, listen to your gut, right? Your gut is your body overriding your mind. So let fear guide you, but also don't let it inhibit you. Right? And go use a lot of lube and go use condoms and go have fun.
And get tested.
And get tested and eat candy and happy fucking Halloween.
Thank you, Jill. Oh my gosh, what a delight. Yes. This was really great. And I'm going to put all of the questions that came in that we discussed will be on Instagram. And that way folks can see it visually that way as well. And then this, if you're listening to this on the podcast, this video is available on YouTube. There is a link in my bio. And I will make sure the link gets out to everybody about where you can find this. And as Jill kind of mentioned in the beginning, this is a wrap on season 2. It's been a delightful, delightful season. Next week is the day after the election. So I am going to be going live on my TikTok channel. If you don't follow me there, at That Sex Educator. We're just going to hold space together and just eat snacks or just kind of be with each other. We don't, if you just need to kind of be in community in some way. So I will be holding space for that as well. And season 3 will be coming out soon. Your girl just needs a hot minute to gather her thoughts after season 2 and how amazing that was. And I'm really excited and I appreciate all of you. Make sure that you are following the podcast. Meet me at the Spot Podcast on Instagram. That's Sex Educator over at TikTok. And that's a wrap for season 2 and for Halloween.
Go eat a Snickers. Happy Halloween.